How you doing, everybody? Uh, let's see who we got here. Paul, hey, Paul, Sherry, Warren, Britt, Deacon, Seth Morley. Hey, come on, Deacon. I got the key to my cage. Hi, Tippy. Christos, Klaus, Krasmir. Hi. Oh, from Bulgaria. Cool. Okay, caliber 3135. First off, is the sound okay, everybody? Is sound all right? Good afternoon, Tigran. Okay, sound okay? Hey, no idea. Hi, Bruce, Warren. Okay, good. The sound's all right. Hi, Paul. Okay, today, what I want to talk about, and I want some of your ideas, is the whole concept of high horology. I I bought into it for one reason. There didn't seem to be any other criteria. There was the Grand Prix d'Horologie de Genève, and they had all these categories that they kept and continue to keep changing. And so it's really trying to nail down, say, look, okay, I want to get a good watch, and what does that constitute? Now, at one time, and I don't think they still have it anymore. At at one time, one of the criteria, I suppose, for a high horology watch was a precious metal. And so if it was made of gold or platinum or something like that. Well, the prices of gold have just shot up a crazy amount. I think back in around 2000, gold was $200 of an ounce, and now it's up over 1,500. It could be more than that. And so it really shot up a lot. And if you bought anything in gold, the price is like a huge amount more. So it's sort of like, well, okay, so that's really not part of the timepiece. And so you have these other metals like titanium and steel and so forth that uh, that you have. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. One of the things I'm wearing my Lang and Hein, and, and it was designed by Marco Lang, and it's a watch with everything that I like about a watch. It's this particular one is made of stainless steel, but I can see the movement. It's really cool and everything. All right. But the point is that Lang, really, it was Marco Langsing. Hein was just there for a year. And writing an article about it, or in an interview, Marco Lang said that he and Hein, they each, and I think plus one other person, each put in 40,000 euros, and that money was gone by the end of the first year. And then when we look around, we see other companies, some major German watch companies like A. Lange and Glashütte Original, and they've been bought up by, or they've been saved really by companies like Richemont. They had to buy them, and you have all of these companies that are really have survived because somebody bought them. Some it was a takeover. So that the economic part of it, I don't want to say, all right, if you can survive on your own, your high horology, or if you can't, you sort of proved your high horology because you're not compromising and you're going broke in the process. So let's hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you consider to be crucially important for a collector? Saying, look, I want to get a good watch. Um, Let me start off with one example of something that I have been talking about recently, And that's the difference between having a watch with a free sprung balance and one with a regulator balance. Now, a regulator balance is much easier to adjust, and because you have the excuse me, the hairspring is between these two pins, and you can make it longer or shorter, which makes the watch go faster or slower. But that's considered to have certain problems of its own. And when you look at certain watches, they usually have one or the other as predominant. Some of them have both. For example, if you take a look at Omega, the all of their watches with the coaxial escapement, which I think is a plus, has the free sprung balance, and I think in part that was so that it would work with the oh god, coaxial escapement. Okay, all right. So you have that. So you say, well, listen, I'd like to get a watch with a free sprung balance, and that's one of my things for high horology. Rolex, any Rolex has a free sprung balance. All of Moser's do. Here's my Moser. This one of my Mosers has a free sprung balance in it. Plus, it's got double hairsprings for keeping the pin in the same place. And I could say, okay, well, those things you could add to it as high horology. Because, for example, if you take a free sprung balance, you've got all of those little weights around the wheel, you have to adjust those to keep the balance just right. And that is preferable in certain ways in having a regulator. Things that pretentious watchmakers like myself can adjust and really get it set pretty well. But I don't know. I just it's one of those things. Okay. So what do you guys? What would be a thing you're saying? Listen, if I had this in a watch, this would indicate to me that it's the kind of sort of collector high horology, not necessarily what's it called, the foundation of high horology, which by the way was started by Richemont. Okay, what do you got here? Free sprung is pretty good, probably, but the traditional regulator has been doing just fine for a long time. That's I agree with that, but people who are a lot better at this than I'll ever be don't think so. All right. You have George Daniels said, nah, you can have it. And again, when I mentioned Daniels, I've got his book and reading it. Not that I fully understand it, but rather so I don't say something that's totally cuckoo. Okay. Can a quartz watch be considered high horology? Well, I think that most people certainly consider F.P. Journe's Elegante of that, and a lot of people think the same of the Grand Seiko spring drive. So I don't know. This is something. I mean, like we shouldn't have to say, okay, if they say this is high horology, then that's high horology. For us as collectors, what do we really think, and what do you think is really important? Hey, Pete, Nino, let's see. What else we got? I would say finishing of a watch and probably the quality of the movement. I would agree with that. The finishing, the more I'm learning about the more I'm finding out that there are some people with some very modest talents. And by modest talents, I'm saying about 5 times more talented than I am working with a watch. There's this one guy who belongs to pretentious watchmakers, and he took all of this stuff and he did whatever you do to it to polish it up and the onlage and all of those things like that. It really looked great. Saying, oh, yeah, that's that maybe that's part of it, but I have a feeling, oddly, that if you with nanotechnology and a computer driven on laws, you can have very similar thing. There's a company, I think it may be O Ophion, or I think it's that one. And what they have done, they took a they're working with a company that's owned by Festina, and they bragging about all the robots they got doing all of these things for them. And I know enough about programming to know that you could set something up to make it look hand done without a great deal of But on the other hand, is anything wrong with that? Let's say you can do it for a much less price, but then you look at the stuff, and man, you got this thing that looks just fantastic. I don't know. I've got That's why I wanted to bring it up. Let me see. Certain movements require high horology. Um, Split seconds, chronograph, minute repeaters are the two that come to mind. Yeah, caliber 3135. Yeah, you've got certain things like that. And I would say the same thing too for remontoire d'égalité, but I'd also say for the second remontoire that's in the true second with Jaja Lecoutre. Now there you have a watch that's stainless steel watch, and I don't know what the finishing is as far as the movement's concerned, but yeah, those things. But see, that's way up here. What I'm looking for is what is something that for us collectors, not for some marketing kind of thing, that would be something that one I think is relatively affordable because the prices. I mean, I was looking at the prices. I stop and think about that. Oh my God, half of these prices, if when we ever stop and think about, well, let's see, what should we spend some money on compared to watches? It's usually nowhere near that much. Like for example, we're thinking about getting a new TV set because our old one, the hand cranked one we have, needs replacement. And yeah, I was going to look at the prices, and that's it's just a fraction of what a good watch costs. So we do pay a great deal for those. Okay, let's see. Complications, I meant to say. All right. If you're going by the dictionary definition, is okay. Well, no, I'm not going by. We're not going by dictionary definitions. We're trying to come up with one of our own, just like they did. I think high horology should have a high level of hand finishing, not just technically superior. Okay, BS. Um, Good afternoon. Okay, Truth Fears, how's it going? Yeah, I'm well, Chris. We mean hand. Okay, hand to a large degree. How can you ever have, let's say then, you take a look at Rolex, all right? They make 1.4 million watches a year. Uh, Patek Philippe makes 50,000. How can you have handmade quality with those, but you have really excellent quality with both of those watches, even though, they've got things that are really well done. Let's take it this way, okay? You got a guy, that's according to Investor Owned Content 10. It can take up to 2 years to train somebody in watchmaking how to do finishing. And okay, so you have some time in doing it to develop a real skill like that. And on the other hand, what about the computers that they use today in the production, that you have something that looks like some guy was out there doing the beveling by hand, because there's in the program that's running running the nanotechnology that's running the whole show, is that they sort of put in a little random number thing so that it'll make it sort of a little difference in a few places. So it looks like somebody did it by hand. I can take a look at this. Or there's another watch too, the Rolf Lang Dresden, that the 12 of us have been sharing over this last year. And man, you can tell that's a hand done because of certain little things that have gone on. Is that it looks like the person doing it is really good, but not the kind of perfection and consistency that you may have in a machine. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. I wish we all had the grace and eyes to open, enjoy, and work on a movement. Nothing more satisfying. Movement is leading. Yeah, I tell you, there are those of us like myself who have no talent whatsoever who do it anyway. there was, there are some things though, maybe that's. I have a friend he just got into polishing and he's really learned all of this stuff about polishing watches. And man, I tell you the difference that makes. You can have your watch just looking really good. You got to be careful with polishing, especially with gold, because you can mess those up really badly. And you don't want to do that. And platinum, my God, platinum is so hard to do right. Never, I would say, never do it on your own. When I had work done on my Chronomet Souverain, FP Jorn, it's made of platinum, and they said, "Oh, you want it polished?" I said, "Sure." $500 for polishing platinum. Next time I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to use my little polishing cloth, and that's it. But I don't know. I get. I think we may be coming to a point in time where a lot of these things are, I don't know, what you can't tell on it is the time. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Clyde, how you doing, man? Um, let's see. Yep. Me likes butchering and polishing too. All right, yeah, but no idea that, to do that, I don't mind getting these reasonably priced movements from China that reflect like the old Unitas 7498 or 6498 and 6497s. And taking one of those plates and polishing it up and doing all these neat things with it. The other day, I was down getting. In fact, they were doing some stuff on this, and I met this young man who was he had got his watchmaking degree or whatever it is through something that Rolex sponsors. I know that there's another. I met another young man at the Watch Time show who is the same thing except with Patek Philippe, and so he brought some watches with him that he happened to have there when I went in to have some stuff done to this with the band. Um, he said, "Oh, I got some other stuff." So I said, when I come to pick it up, show it to me. My God, this is a school watch that he did, and it was just gorgeous. I was like looking at the thing. They took an iBosch from something, I don't know what, probably a 6497, one of those, and had to totally remake all of the plates for it. It was just amazing. So I was looking at this, plus the finishing was perfect and everything else. Now, the problem, hey, Seabig, the problem with a lot of this is that it takes skill and time. And the greater amount of skill and a greater amount of time it takes, then the price goes up. On the other hand, if you have something, I mean, would it still be okay to have these robots working away like rented mules, working really hard, getting this finish, the CDC machines and so forth, and really making it look as close as possible. But in the back of your mind, because they tell you that this thing was done by a machine instead of by hand, even though if you look at it, you say, hey, this looks like it was done by hand. By hand, I like that too, but my goodness, the price is just it gets way up there. And I think, like a lot of people, this is why Marco Lang left his own company. He had to get these guys, for funding of it. And at some point, they said, "No, we don't want you around because you're not, you're not helping to market this stuff." And that happened to A. Longa, it happened to Glashütte Original, it happened to Vacheron Constantin, it happened to Jaja Lecoultre. Otherwise, they wouldn't be owned by these other companies. And even, what was it? F.P. Journe, it was bought by 20% was bought by Chanel. And Chanel recently came out with the newest J12 that just came out at this last year's SIHH. Here was something they owned 20% of the company that made the movement for them. I forgot the Kessany or something like that. But part of that company is owned by Tudor, and they're making a shop on the land that's owned by Rolex in Geneva. So it's like, whoa. All right. Okay, let's see what you got. What do you got there, Klaus? High horology is the minimum I expect in order for it to be collectible. It has to bring creativity to the table. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are considered to be that. See, this is when you come up with these huge numbers, like 1.4 million Rolex or 50,000 Patek Philippe's, and then you have Mosers, and they have like, I don't know, maybe under 2,000, and this guy, this one is number 10. All right, I don't know how many more beyond 10 of this particular model, the Frederick II on this. Let's see what else you guys have to say. The Pro 3000W Dremel is amazing. Oh yeah, that's a cool tool for messing with this stuff. Is engineering done on the watch beauty and the statement? Statement equals status. Yeah, Tippy, this is another big thing too. And sort of the status of something has sort of a double-edged sword, okay? On the one hand, you have built up a name. Gee, I'm trying to think which one it is. There's this one company, I can't think of the name. It starts with an M, like maybe it's not Moet, it's something like that. But this was a company way back when invented the chronograph. Okay, well that's a big deal. And so they're sort of like resting on those laurels, and they had all of these newer watches, and I found out that they were just shoving in ETAs into it and kicking them out the door and talking about their own history. History is yesterday. And it's I don't know. Okay, what else you guys have here? Uh, let's see. Must have a croc strap, huh, Deacon? Too bad for California. Then you can't have. There's no high horology in California. Must be free sprung. You know, boy, that's a tough one. There's something I've been noticing on some watches. For example, the Ralph Lang that we have that we're passing around to each other, excuse me, that one has both the what Lang calls the um, marine chronometer balance, and it has these four weights that are adjusted on the four spokes of the balance wheel, and then it has a swan neck, and therefore doing regulation adjustment. And I think this may also have the same thing. So you have both of those. I'm not sure. Tigman K. Malin. No, that wasn't who I was thinking of. It's not wasn't that. Hi Hans, they see, can machine finishing ever be better than hand finishing? Now, this is the whole point, is that where you have machine finishing, you have these very, very good computer-controlled finishers that can make it look as hand as you want. In fact, what you could do is you could move one of those over, take your best hand finished let's say the plates on the back of the plates on top of the gears and everything that go into a movement, and have it trace that, and it will come up with the identical one, and you can't tell the difference. One of the things that I was told, this is a trick. This is something to look for. I was told, if you want to find out whether your finishing is hand done or not, is you look at the points. Is that where you see a point in a plate or a bridge on a watch? If the tip of that is there's a beveling on the tip, then it's hand done because apparently that can't be done by a machine. But that's only temporary. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to do that. Okay, what else you got? Hey, Riza. Uh, let's see. Richard Milley has a status symbol that doesn't have the history. Well, a lot of the best ones really don't have much history. You take well, A Longa sort of does. That got broken up by the war and the sort of the pre rejoining of Germany. Um, a lot of but if you look at since about the last 20 years, the ones that have come up, all of the top ones are pretty new. FP Jorn, Moser really did come up, even though it goes way back. But the real Moser, the ones that Malin has, this is all since the last 20 years. Um, Parmigiani, who else? Kerry Wooten Lawn, and all of these guys, the smaller ones. Uh, uh, Let me see, Gronfeld. So these most of the really top ones today are relatively new. Let's see, what else you got here? Could you have a talk about the factors that make movements unique? Movements of Vacheron, Constantin, Vacheron, Tudor, that determines different prices. Oh boy, that's a good question, Reza. I think that there's a disconnect somewhere between the price of a watch and the movement, and I say that because there's been so much skunking, I guess, where you have these companies that everything is all great and it's a high horology and rah rah rah, and you got a movement in there. It's nothing but a sort of off the shelf standard ETA or one of those. So that's a hard thing. That's really hard to come up with. Uh, okay. Yeah, Textrix, I got to take out the history, and I'll tell you why. Um, yeah, Dufour is a great example, Warren. You take Philippe Dufour, he worked for, I forgot who he worked for. I think it was Patek Philippe, perhaps. But he comes out and he does his own thing, and that was again in the last 20 years. And so you have to, I mean, your history doesn't go back like Vacheron Constantin and some of these other ones. And you take, for example, Beauvais. There's no connection between the original Beauvais and the Pascal Raffi's Beauvais. However, what Pascal Raffi did to it was way better than the last of the family Beauvais did to Beauvais. So you can have, I mean, he took that company and he wanted to make it to this really fine watchmaking, and he did. Uh, he has he came out with these great watches. In fact, he last year he the 2018 he won the Aiguille d'Or, which is the top prize in the Grand Prix. So you have the history part of it. Now I know you have companies like with really old history, and probably I think the oldest may be Vacheron Constantin. Uh, excuse me. Gerard Perregaux has an old history. So does Patek Philippe. All of these they have a lot of history, but that doesn't make them better. What makes them better is the kinds of things they're doing now. It's sort of like the old Hollywood thing, is that somebody does grade and film and so forth. And the question is, what have you done for us lately? And I think that's relevant now because, you rest on your laurels. That's all you're getting are the laurels. You're not getting any kind of innovation. You're not getting any kind of increase in quality. You're just getting the same old thing that's been dusted off and redone again. Um, let's see. Geneva Seal. Hi, Hans. Uncle Bill, right, Hans. Um, yeah, the Geneva Seal. Oh boy, I like the Geneva Seal. The same thing with Metis. Omega uses Metis. Patek Philippe used to get all of the Geneva Seals, and they got in some argument with the Geneva Seal people and decide, well, we're going to have our own seal, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I mean, how can you give yourself a seal of approval? I mean, but they do. And people, oh, it's got the Patek Philippe seal. I have a Patek Philippe, and mine's one of the older ones, and I have the Geneva seal on it. If I had a newer one, it's going to have the double P on it. I mean, can you imagine that? They came out with a new model, and the guy said, we're not going to put our Patek Philippe seal on there." I haven't heard that happening once. But the Geneva seal, this is something we were talking about the other day when the Vacheron Constantines, they have the 56, and they had this Val Fleurier movement. They didn't have the Geneva seal. And one reason that it wouldn't have the Geneva seal, it wasn't made in Geneva. That's one of the criteria. It's made in Fleurier. So you have these weird things like that. And I don't know. It's not necessarily the final product, of course. Machines are going to be more precise. Well, they may not have that BS. This is instead of being more precise, what they can be more human-like. This is what I'm saying. They can have human flaws, right? Hey, Mark Armin. Ah, Amen. Let's see. Okay, let's see. What's Clyde up to here? Oh, history shows we can build watches. All right. Um, should have revised it to our prestige. Okay, let's talk about prestige. IWC is a watch company, and they have quite a history to them, and I think a lot of people see a Portuguese or something like that as a very prestigious watch. You go in there though, and you have um, you go into watch base, and you find some of their watches are simply warmed over ETAs. And if you look at the pricing is very different. If they have one of their own in-house, it's higher. And so it's sort of like if I see someone with an IWC, is that there's this little question mark. I'm not saying they don't make good watches because I know they do, some of them, but I just wish they would be a lot more forthcoming. To me, that's one thing. Any watch company that's fudging what's in their watches, I won't trust at all. They have no prestige. They're nothing. Uh, One thing I got to hand to Panerai, they had one of the worst scandals imaginable. They put in this totally unfinished ETA in one of their watches called the Brooklyn Bridge, and they got caught. And they looked at it, and it just was junk in there. But since then, and it's going to take a while before I ever trust them again, is that now they have all of their own movements, which I think is a heck of a good move for Panerai. And you say, well, look at the history of Panerai. Well, it goes back to making watches for Italian frogmen who were blowing up British ships. I don't know if the British appreciated that. Okay, let's see. Super Bowl pick, please. Well, this year I'm going to enjoy the Super Bowl. Being a Patriots fan, we're not in it, so that's okay with me. What if the machine is going through a bad breakup? Yeah, yeah, that can happen. So one of the things it needs didn't get the service it needed, and so the machine is doing something weird. Uh, okay, let's see. Andres, craftsmanship. Okay, to me, craftsmanship is important. Either in the case movement. Well, to me, it's not an either or thing. It should have craftsmanship throughout. Um, that's the tough part, though, is that, well, how do we know it's craftsmanship anymore? Isn't high horology just really a marketing term anyway? Yeah, Clyde, that was exactly the point that I started off with, and it is a marketing term. It really is marketing, and they have all of this criteria that has to be, and then you take a look at the companies that are considered to be part of the foundation of high horology. There's a lot of falderall in that whole thing. But we shouldn't have to depend on their definition. If we're collectors, we better figure out what we want. Otherwise, we end up perhaps not getting really what we want at all. Uh, yeah, it's such a subjective phrase. It means different things to different people. Uh, yeah, to a point. Okay, it if we take it instead of calling it high horology, let's take it a good watch. I mean, a good mechanical watch. I'll say that. So you want a good mechanical watch, and what does that look like? Well, if you want a sports watch, it looks like one thing. If you want a dress watch, it looks like something else. Um, where will you service parts in-house movements of some high-end independents if they don't survive the next 10 years? Um, you know, I'm worrying less and less about that. The more I learn about watchmaking, the only thing that you're going to have a problem with, Pete, is to me with the parts. But then when I look at the parts, there's certain ones that look an awful lot alike. Okay, let's see what else you got here. High horology doesn't mean quality, and quality doesn't mean high horology. Well, that's what we're trying to do. Is that quality for whom? Quality for us as people who pay a lot of money for these watches, or quality in that something that you can have. You can sell a watch for a lot more than it took to produce it. Uh, this is one of the other funny things is that one of the other funny things about this whole thing is is that if we if we if we don't pay attention to these things, I think we'll be taken advantage of. I really do. I think if we squawk about it, and you can see to some extent that that's had an effect. I mean, look at Panerai. Finally, they said, "Okay, we get it. You know that we're putting in phony baloney, you know, not phony baloney, but off the shelf movements rather than making them ourselves." So I think it's important for us to, rather than sort of sit around like a bunch of lap dogs and saying, you know, whatever little doggy treats they give us, that we should say, look, this is what we'd like to see in your watch, and we would like to, and if it's more affordable, and yet you can have good quality to put in an off the shelf ETA, you know, doll it up with some improved finishing. Why not? That's fine with me. Or you take a look what Ophion is doing. Here you have a case made by, I think it's Wooten Lonnen and Callan. All right, so you get a really good case, and then you have something else. The movement that was Teletime, that they went out of business, but they got the watch, and then they got the movement, and then they fixed it up and put it in the watch, and then they got these really good straps from this Spanish strap maker, and then they got a dial from, I think they did, they got the dial from, so you take all of these really good specialists, and they are out there, You know, that's possible. Okay, high horology, any brand whose name can't be properly pronounced by AC3. Oh, that would probably include me too. Fine craftsmanship, innovative technology, quality of finishing, materials used. I know, I think Amen reviews. I like that. Yeah, I like that way of putting it. Um, okay, let's see. What you got? I need to send out uh let's see. Let me see what you guys had. So Braemont is high horology. LOL. Well, Braemont doesn't even make its own movements. I think Braemont has some of the best cases in the business. I really do. Their cases are fantastic. But they haven't got around to make their movements. Hey, Lisa. Uh, no. Yeah. Uh, Clyde does. All right, let's see. Let's catch up next weekend. Okay. Um, Orange Hand. I think high horology means limited production, high quality materials, some hand craftsmanship and finishing. That's a good one. I like that too. I it's something though. I if nothing else that I hope that we could do today is at least have some kind of awareness of it and really ask ourselves, if these guys say this is high horology because so and so did it. That's what did they do? Or if they had craftsmanship, what exactly does that entail? These kind of things, I think, is sort of cool to ask. Okay, my family's, including my father and my uncle, they don't consider all Japanese men to not be a high horology. They do not top brand. However, they consider Roger Dubois and RM to be one. Well, Roger Dubois. Yeah, it's something though that we have to ask. Okay, let's take one more and think about it some more. It's important for me also to receive high service and customer care and the high horology package. Woo, that can be tough. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm simply saying that, especially with these independents, as they start having more and more, and suddenly people say, "Hey, I need this service," is that they're trying to produce enough to make a profit to survive, and then they have to fix a whole bunch. That's a tough one, though. But it's certainly in terms of something that would be nice to have. It's important. Okay, Roger Debris. Okay. Well, listen, guys. I've gone over. I may get in trouble. So anyway, thank you all for coming. And I got there's a really neat collection that's being reviewed tomorrow. And so before you watch the Super Bowl, if you're an American anyway, you could take a look at this collection review. It's called the Engineers Collection, and I think you're going to find it interesting. I did. All right. Uh, Till then, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Size. See you later.